These men attacked the old man, but they didn't know he was not alone there. One afternoon in the town, the hot sun scorched the land to a golden yellow. After a morning of hard work, farmers enjoyed a short break after lunch at home. A sudden rush of wolf howls broke the tranquility of the town. Originally, they thought it was just a few wolves. As a result, judging from the intensity of the sound, there were at least a dozen wolves. Although wolves are pack animals, they generally live in groups of 6 or 7. Generally, the number of wolves in areas with abundant materials will be as high as dozens. They only show up when there's something big about the group. The farmers in the town were very surprised. Why did the wolves appear in groups? With doubt, they found that the wolves were not attacking. They were numerous, but the goal seemed to be unified because they were all going in one direction. And in the process, they didn't harass the surrounding people and livestock, and they acted very strangely. Suddenly, the wolves' rushing footsteps stopped. Farmer Carl stayed at home and shivered because the wolves were so close to them, but they didn't move. Why were so many wolves there and not moving? Carl opened the window and found that more than 20 adult men with iron weapons had already gathered in the yard across the road. There was a man lying on the wall looking nervously in this direction. Carl knew that the wolves were in the yard next door, and he was both scared and worried because the next door was an elderly couple. At the time, they were over 60 but had no children. How were they going to deal with this cold-blooded wolf? Carl dared to come to the edge of the wall. The villagers across the road immediately signaled him to observe the situation next door. Carl didn't read a lot, but he wasn't stupid. He knew that this pack of wolves must be their purpose, and if they wanted to attack, they wouldn't be so quiet. Carl moved a chair and climbed up the wall, surprised by what he saw. A dozen wild wolves lined up neatly in 2 rows in the yard, leaving an open space in the middle, and a dozen wolves standing outside the yard. Standing in the middle of the yard was a tall wolf who seemed to be their leader. The wolf chief was biting a hat. Carl was horrified to see that he was familiar with the hat, the one Carl wore on her head every day. While Carl was lost in thought, Anna opened the window in the next room. He couldn't help trying to see what was going on and was extremely frightened. Carl and his wife have no descendants, but they accompany each other and have a very good relationship. They'd been married for more than 40 years, but they never quarreled. Warren opened the door and walked out without a moment's hesitation. After seeing the hat in the wolf's mouth, Anna had thought a lot and believed that nothing was more important than Carl's life. The wolves didn't move when they saw Anna come out. The wolf head took 2 steps toward Anna, then lowered the hat and whined at Anna. Its voice was fast and sad. Anna didn't know what it wanted. The wolf gave Anna a head shove, then trotted to the door and looked back at Anna. It shook its head as if to motion for Anna to follow it. After the wolf leader issued an order, more than 20 wolves instantly retreated outside, and only it was there waiting for Anna. Anna was worried about her husband and immediately followed. After walking a few dozen meters, the villagers armed with weapons also came out. They didn't know what the wolves wanted to do, so they could only follow closely. After walking about 500 meters, the wolves took Anna to a valley, and then there was a cliff. The villagers couldn't help worrying about Anna, but Warren didn't think much and quickly followed the wolves to the edge of the cliff. Then they heard Anna's cry and they hurried forward. They saw Anna standing on the cliff, beckoning to them. When they got closer, they realized that Carl had accidentally fallen. After he was attacked by some thieves and pushed down with old man that helped him, then this pack of wolves tried to attack these men and escape and leave her and the old man in this isolated place. Fortunately, there were vines that slowed her fall, so she only suffered some skin injuries. Alice did not call for help immediately after seeing the villagers, but loudly reminded them not to hurt the wolves. He told them they were there to save people. The accompanying hunters habitually went out with a rope, which was very useful. At that time, only after they rescued Carl, did they realize that the wolf below had fallen to save her and the old man. Carl, who was saved by the miraculous animal. Unfortunately, the wolf's hind leg was broken. Although the villagers were very puzzled, in order to repay the wolves, they went to the town to get some medicine to heal the wolf and made a simple stretcher to carry it back to the town. Back in Carl's yard, the wolves obediently left. Carl looked at their puzzled eyes and smiled and talked about a chance encounter with these wolves a half-year ago. At the end of that year, Carl went up the hill to mow the grass. As he passed a cave, he heard a wailing sound coming from inside. Carl thought it was a barking puppy. He walked in only to find that it was a litter of wolves. He didn't know where their parents had went. They were hungry for days and looked very thin. Carl thought they were pitiful. The next day, Carl was worried about the cubs, so he returned to the cave with some porridge and goat milk. At that time, their parents had not returned. Carl had no children, so he was feeding the cubs. He felt a sense of responsibility when he looked at their dependent eyes. For the next few days, he would bring food to them. The cubs were recovering and jumping around Carl, looking very cute. Carl even wanted to take them home to raise them, but considering the limited labor capacity of him and his wife when the wolf cubs grew up, they could not afford it. But it was winter, and it was hard for them to survive without food. The kind-hearted Carl came to this cave every day to feed them. Half a month later, he came to the cave with fresh pork. He saw 2 tall and mighty adult wild wolves, but he was not afraid. The 2 wild wolves clearly smelled a familiar scent from Carl's body. They understood that he was taking care of their children in their place during that time. The wolves were full of gratitude for Carl and his wife when he came home that day. Carl had a fat hare in his hand. When he got home, he told his wife about it. Anna agreed with him very much after hearing this. The next day, they went to the cave together to visit them. Every time Carl visited the cubs, the wolf would prepare some prey for them. It didn't take long for them to develop a deep friendship. It said that good is rewarded. Half a year later, this sentence was confirmed by Carl. He screamed loudly after he fell off the cliff. A few minutes later, the wolves, who had grown up, came over. When one of the wolves saw Carl, it rushed down to save him. But the hill was too steep, and soon it rolled down. The other wolf cubs had no choice but to call their elders over. Unexpectedly, these wild wolves were so affectionate and righteous. There were 2 groups of wild wolves to rescue him. Although there were many wolves at that time, there was nothing they could do. In desperation, the wolf leader led them to the town for help. So the scene where the story began. The wolf had recovered from the leg injury under Carl's thoughtful care after more than 10 days. So the wolves sent 2 wild wolves to pick it up. Everything is unpredictable. In those days, Anna had a cold and developed an old ailment, but the family's cotton was ready to be harvested. Carl had no choice but to hobble and slowly work in the fields when she was worrying about. When he could finish his farm work, he heard the familiar wolf howl in the distance. Carl saw the wolves he had rescued. They had grown to nearly 2 meters by then. Carl didn't go to see them during that time, so the cubs went to Carl's house to see that Anna was sick. The wolves ran over when they saw Carl working hard in the fields alone. To Carl's great surprise, they used their razor-sharp teeth to help him harvest, following his example. The villagers passing by felt very strange after seeing this scene. It was rare for a pack of wolves to help people do farm work with the help of several wolves. Carl's cotton was all harvested. After the work was done, a few wolves made a special trip to bring them prey. Until the couple's death, the wolves maintained a relationship with them. Some villagers even saw that there were often 1 or 2 wolves guarding Carl's cemetery. Wolves and humans have a strong bond. The silver stripe of the wolf's coat gleamed in the afternoon sunlight. His black nose inhaled my scent deeply. His ears pointed alertly forward. We were inches apart now, and from the corner of my eye, I could see the other members of his pack waiting. Every fiber of my being was focused on surviving the next few seconds. The wolf's powerful hindquarters lowered slightly as he prepared to jump. He flew towards me. His paws, the size of side plates, landed on my shoulders. His imposing fangs only a centimeter from my face. The world stopped. Then he licked my face with his rough tongue. This was my first wolf kiss, the equivalent of a human handshake, and it was a fearsome introduction to these extraordinary animals. Now, after 25 years of observing the creatures loving, living, and dying in the wilds in the U.S., Canada, and Germany, I've learned that rather disconcerting truth. No species is socially so close to humans as the wolf. Scientists who have studied the social systems of wolf packs over many generations all agree that man can, in fact, learn a lot about himself by watching these amazing animals. At first glance, of course, we couldn't be more different. The big bad wolf of fairy tales is deeply rooted in our minds, along with the wolf's fearsome reputation as a hunter. Yet it's no accident that many groups of indigenous people, from Native American tribes to Mongolians, see the wolf as the ancestor and totem of their own origins. Both humans and wolves prioritize family and care for the elderly and thrive on harmony and ritual. This becomes even more significant if you compare the fact that even male primates, considered more similar to humans than wolves, don't help feed their young or look after the old. We both appoint leaders and use our individual talents for the good of the family or in our work. Some of us are patient and good listeners, others are impulsive and take ideas further. Some are peacemakers and skilled negotiators. When I observe these traits in wolves, I wonder why everything seems to be so much more complicated for us humans. In our modern, high-tech age, we've become alienated from nature. We don't even experience darkness and silence anymore. But wolves have taught me how important family is, to show affection to those we love, and to celebrate life, even if only for a brief moment. They've shown me what it means to be a human being. Few scenes in nature are as heartwarming to observe as a wolf family. In contrast to the growling, fang-flashing creatures that we see in films, the lives of wild wolves are characterized by harmony and playful, affectionate interactions. The pups are the beloved and protected treasure of the pack. The whole family looks after them, including aunts, uncles, and older brothers and sisters. Old and wounded family members are brought food and never abandoned. Every member of the pack knows where his place is. For family, wolves will sacrifice their lives. In April 2013, in a valley in Yellowstone Park, I watched a 2-year-old wolf intervene in a turf war to save her mother and 4 newborn pup siblings. Her mother, the alpha female of the local pack, was being chased by 16 members of a rival neighboring group and was running for her life. Having crossed a road and tourist route, the attackers didn't dare follow, but they now stood between the wolf and her days-old pups in the den. It fell to the wolf's daughter to lure them in a different direction, which could easily have proved fatal. But having easily outrun them, the rival wolves left, disgruntled, and didn't reappear that year in the same territory. Another special moment of love among siblings came one spring, when melting snow had transformed rivers into raging torrents. This is the time when wolf families move from dens to hunting grounds and may need to cross the rivers. The adults swim ahead, showing the little ones how it's done. They howl from the opposite shore and encourage them to follow. One pup didn't dare go in and ran up and down wailing on the bank. Again and again it dipped a paw in the water and turned around. In the end, his sister swam back, grabbed a stick, and distracted the pup with pulling games. Then she enticed him into the water with a stick and helped him to the other side. Elderly or sick wolves, too, are cared for by the pack. Old wolves are invaluable. A pack with just one elderly member has a 150% better chance of winning in battles because of their experience. They will avoid a conflict they don't think they can win. In a pack known as Silver in Yellowstone, a young whippersnapper had become leader but treated the old deposed head with great respect, because the old gentleman was a master in the difficult art of bison killing. When they die, there's genuine grief. Cinderella, one of the females from the park's druid pack, died during a hunting trip. Her partner retreated into the den where they'd raised the pups and howled for the next 3 days. 6 months later, his skeleton was found in an area where he'd spent many months with his partner. How he died remained a mystery. Could it have been a broken heart? One bitterly cold day, I spotted the druid pack, a group of 7 animals whose alpha male was like the leading man in a movie. One biologist liked to compare him to Muhammad Ali or Michael Jordan, a unique talent with abilities beyond the norm. When he appeared, the wolf world seemed to hold its breath. He had a powerful build and radiated natural authority. In a small village in Serbia, a retired woman enjoyed her privacy, but welcomed 3 tired strangers to her home as they passed through the area on their way back from hunting. With them, they carried 3 tiny puppies whose mother had not been found, and the kind stranger didn't seem to want to leave them unprotected or out in the open fields to die. The next day, the men left on their trip heading home, but decided to leave one of the pups behind because it had been the runt of the litter and seemed quite weak. The men never told the woman where they found the little ones, and the woman just figured someone had abandoned the puppies, and so she raised the adorable little one. No one ever explained to the woman that she'd been raising a wolf cub. As the puppy grew older, he became very bonded with the woman and would sleep in the house on cold nights and wander around the farm during the day. Often he would chase chickens and birds. The woman would get angry with him. The puppy didn't like upsetting his owner, and when she would scold him, he'd put his ears down and back and slink into the corner. The puppy never barked, only growled. The woman named him Volchok, and both lived together in harmony. That is, until 3 criminals crossed the woman's property with the intentions of harming the woman, taking over her home and hiding out for as long as needed. Volchok, however, had a different idea. When the criminals broke into the woman's house and started to become violent, Volchok growled and showed his teeth in a defensive manner. One man pulled out a knife and stabbed the dog in the paw, but the fierce protector wasn't deterred, and Volchok attacked and chased the men out of the woman's home. As the criminals ran away, the other dogs in the village started barking loudly, bringing out their families who all banded together with the local police to capture the outlaws. And yes, Volchok did recover. He never was a fan of most humans, but his love for the woman who raised him and loved him never waned. No doubt in our minds, the woman never lost faith in Volchok either. They could see a few pairs of green eyes at night. The quality of animals is truly amazing. This is today's story.